So I'm going to invite people to come up towards the front so that we feel a little bit cozier tonight. I think the rain is going to be keeping a lot of people away tonight. So if you could be in like the front 4 rows. I'm not going to make you sit in the front row, but at least the front 4 rows. Oh, you're good. You are in the 4th row. But if you want to come forward, that's awesome. Thank you. It makes it feel less lonely up here. Oh, good. Here it is.
Oh, I saw Hal on Wednesday.
Oh. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I am so happy to see all of you. I did not expect to actually see people tonight because of the rain, because as you know, people from California get terrified when there's wet stuff coming from the sky. So Shabbat Shalom, it's good to have you here. Let's just take a breath, shake off the stress of the week, open ourselves up to a little bit of reflection and prayer and peace. Let's begin with a nigun.
Bin ba, bin 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 ba, bin 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 ba, bidi 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 bin ba, bin 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 ba, bin 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 ba. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Bim, bam, bim, 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 bam. Bim, 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 bam. Biddy, 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 bim. Bam, bim, 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 bam. Bim, 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 bam.
Before we welcome in Shabbat, let's take a moment to welcome each other. Let's stand up and introduce ourselves to at least 2 people we didn't know when we came in tonight.
sick, so they postponed it. So we're gonna do Ask the Rabbi.
Yes.
So we'll have more opportunities to talk and get to know each other at the ONEG following the service. But we continue first with Lecha Dodi on page 138, singing verses
1 and 9, I think.
Singing verses 1 and 9, page
That's right,
138. No, okay.
Lecha lecha tu, likrat likrata, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrata, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. La 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 la. Lecha dodi, likrat likrata, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrata, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zechor b'dibur echad, tishmi'anu edan echad, Adonai echad, u'shemo echad, lo shem el tiferet v'liti la 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 lecha dodi, likrat likrata, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrata, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Boi v'shalom ateret ba'ala, gam b'simcha uv'tzola, toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, boi chala, la 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 la. Lecha dodi, likrat likrata, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrata, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. La 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 la. Lecha dodi, likrat likrata, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrata, b'nei Shabbat nikabela.
Don't sit down yet. I'd like to invite anybody who would like to light the Shabbos candles with us to come and join us on the bima. Don't be shy. Come on up. And you're allowed to sit if you're not going to come on up to light the candles. So come on up. The candle blessing will be found on page 120. But first we begin with Shalom Aleichem on page 142.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hashari, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Vochem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech, Malachei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu.
The words are right up here. We'll do the Hebrew and then the English.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May their worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
Amen.
Amen. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedkem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
You guys could return to your seats, but we remain standing for the Baruch Hu on page, sorry guys, for the Baruch Hu on page 146.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Amvorach. Baruch Adonai Amvorach Leolam Vaed.
We continue together on the bottom of page 148. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tsevaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravim.
Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Amcha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta, Otanu limadeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shachbeinu uvkumeinu nasiach bekukecha v'nizmach b'divrei toratecha u'mitzvotecha leolam va'ed ki hei chayenu ve'oreh yameinu uvahem nege yomam v'layla, nege yomam v'layla. Ve'ahavat cha'al tasir mimeinu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohei Amo Yisrael. Ohei Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
We continue together on page 154.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibartam bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'aderech uv'shachpecha uv'kumecha וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Amen.
We read together on the top of page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
We continue kind of on page 160 with Hashkivenu, except the English that we'll be singing is different than the English in the prayer book, but the Hebrew that we'll be singing, Ufros Aleinu, can be found in the third line of both the Hebrew and the transliteration.
Oh, guide my steps and help me find my way. I need your shelter now. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps. Help me make this day a song of praise to you. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps. Ufros Aleinu Sukkah Shlomecha. Ufros Aleinu Sukkah Shlomecha. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps.
We continue together on page 162.
Beshamru Bnei Yisrael HaShabbat La'asot et HaShabbat L'dorotam be'olam. Beshamru Bnei Yisrael HaShabbat La'asot et HaShabbat L'dorotam be'olam. Beni uvein Bnei Yisrael Oti leolam, Oti leolam. Beshamru Bnei Yisrael HaShabbat La'asot et HaShabbat L'dorotam be'olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz. Bnei Yisrael HaShabbat La'asot et HaShabbat L'dorotam be'olam. Uvayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash. Beshamru Bnei Yisrael HaShabbat La'asot et HaShabbat L'dorotam be'olam.
We rise for the tefillah beginning on page 164.
Adonai Shefatai Tivta Ufi Yagite Techa. Adonai, open my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu. Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'koneh Hakol, V'zocher Chastei Avot V'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei Bneihem, Le'ma'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ezrat Sarah. Ata Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol, Ata Rav LeHoshia, Mashiv HaRuach, Umorid HaGashem, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Someh Noflim Verofeh Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umkayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Bal Gevurot, Umidom Elach, Melech Meimi, Umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman ata lechayot hakol, Baruch ata Adonai, mechayeh hakol. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, ukdoshim b'chol yom, yehelucha selah. Baruch ata Adonai, ha'el HaKadosh.
We continue praying privately from page 172 through 180 on either the odd or even side of the page, either standing or sitting as is your custom.
Ose shalom bimroma, uyase shalom alein ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Ose Shalom b'roma, uyase shalom alein ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Ose shalom b'roma, uyase shalom alein ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Ose shalom b'roma, uyase shalom alein ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen.
Our prayers and our hearts now turn towards those who are in need of healing, a healing of body or a healing of spirit. As we turn to page 371, let's think about those in our lives and in our worlds who are in need of a refuah shlema, a complete healing of body and spirit. And let's think about the ways that we could help them in their time of need, and what ways can we offer comfort or help. So as we pray for them, let's focus on how we can reach out to them in this coming week. Page 371.
Mishebera Avoteinu Mikol Habraka Leimoteinu. May the source of strength, who bless the one before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishebera Imoteinu Mikor Habraka Leavoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
So tonight is my favorite type of night. It's Ask the Rabbi. So this is your chance to ask any questions that you might have. Don't be shy about the questions you might ask, because if you're wondering it, it's very possible that other people are. You may not be shy, but I'm always scared. For those who don't know, this is my brother, and the only person who can stump an Alfie is another Alfie, so I'm a little nervous.
I read in a book here that once you start a congregation, you have to have a rabbi, a cantor, and a scribe. I have never been in a temple that has a scribe. Is that something that's pre-World War II?
Point it this way.
Is that something that's pre-World War II, or is that not done anymore?
So that is a great question. I would say less pre-World War II and more not in the United States. So let's think about this. Why would a congregation need a scribe?
Something that needs repairing in the Torah?
Something, right, the Torah needs repairing, and so you can't read the Torah if it's pasul, if it's not kosher. So, right, so you need to make sure that it's good. But that's not a huge job. So why else? Why, if my brother grew up in a Reform synagogue, would he have never have seen a scribe as being like on the payroll?
Well, maybe to set down simchas as they occur.
Yeah, the ketubas, yeah. And baby namings.
Right, to write legal documents. So one of the things that we forget in the Reform tradition is that Judaism is not just a religion, but it is also a legal tradition. That in most of the countries that we operated in, we were in essence a government within a government. That we were not citizens of the countries that we lived in. So we had our own courts of law. We had our own. And basically, especially in Europe, the European government didn't really want to deal with us. So that there were Jewish courts that dealt with not just what we would think of as religious matters, but also as civil matters. Two businesses are having a problem. Like say, This was my Orthodox Talmud teacher in New York's example, because it was New York and there's pizza parlors everywhere. So, for instance, there's rules in Judaism, a lot of rules that have to do with doing business with each other. So, say Marilyn's pizza business is right here, and Rachel decides that 2 doors away she wants to open another pizza business. They might go to the Beit Din and they may want to argue about what she's doing is actually harming her business. And we actually have rules like this also in the Reform movement, where you're not supposed to open a new synagogue within a certain amount of miles of another Reform synagogue so as not to drive them out of business. So in Judaism, we have business law, we have family law, we have civil law, and all of these need legal documents. In order to have a legal document, you need someone who is literate. And that's part of what a sofer or a scribe does. So they'll write up a ketubah, which is a marriage contract. Another way of saying it is it's a prenup agreement. And if you're going to have prenup agreements, then what else are you going to need? You need a get for when there's a divorce, exactly. And so you need to have somebody who's literate who could be writing all of those legal documents. Now, we think of Jewish communities as looking like they do today, or really in the 20th century. And the reality is, through much of Jewish history, we didn't have synagogues the way we have synagogues outside of the major centers. Like if you came to Sacramento, say in 1849, or say even 1850, would you see a synagogue? No, but if you wanted to go pray, where would you go? There was a great jewelry store down in Old Town where the founder of our synagogue used to shut down at high holidays, and that's where they had services. So there's something called a shtibel, which is like it's like a baby synagogue. It's not a synagogue like this. It could be it's a storefront type of synagogue where people gather so that they could say prayers 3 times a day for the different minions. You have to have a sizable community to establish a synagogue, to be able to afford a rabbi. And the cantor, up until after World War II, was not exactly the way we think of it today. It was a profession, but it was something that instead of going to school to train to do, you would have apprenticeships. And it wasn't until the Hebrew Union College in the 1950s started the School of Sacred Music that we started to reframe the way that we think of cantors as a professional, as a professional position. And so why do you think that a congregation would need a cantor, though, that this would be part of the rules? Because most rabbis sing terribly, and just like me. And the prayers are supposed to uplift your soul. So there are rules about, like, it specifically in Jewish tradition, a cantor has to have a voice that is pleasant to listen to, which makes me think that there were a lot of people who called themselves cantors who didn't sound so good, and so they had to write down, no, that's actually a part of the job requirement, not just knowing the words, but being able to make it sound beautiful. So it would make sense that in a larger synagogue, if it's a big enough synagogue to really be able to afford a piece of property, to afford the upkeep, to afford a rabbi and a cantor, you would also need a scribe, because you probably have a big enough Jewish community where there are going to be legal cases coming before the rabbi as well. I think you had a question before. Do you want to ask your question still, Eileen? Or? Okay. I have the question. You want me to say your question? Wait.
I was wondering why the new cantor didn't adjust to our melodies and instead use her melodies, which are foreign to us.
So that's a good question, and that's because when we were doing our interviews to hire a new cantor, that's part of what we asked. We said that our congregation loves music, and we want to learn and expand our repertoire of music. So we actually gave her the mandate to bring more music in. So each service she tries to introduce a new melody, and it will take time before we kind of expand our repertoire so that it becomes more comfortable. And some of the melodies we sing, other people don't sing. Anything that we sing that's by Cantor Nalawai, no one else in the world sings that except for us. For those of you who don't know, Cantor Nalawai was our cantor 2 cantors ago, and he passed away about, how old is Avi? What? Yeah, you do know, 15 years ago exactly.
So I was wondering, in the United States, what is the relationship between the different branches of Judaism? Like practically on a national level, is there coordination, and also on a local level?
There are multiple answers to all of those questions. Okay, so on a national level, I would say there's a lot of dialogue between the Reform, Conservative, and Reconstructionist movements. There are personal friendships between the leadership, and on issues that are important to all of us, particularly issues of who is a Jew in Israel, there is definitely a lot of coordination. Not always agreement, but always dialogue and coordination. Depending on the issue, that might expand to also include the modern Orthodox movement. And Sophie, remind me, because I can't remember, there's like 2 breakoffs from modern Orthodoxy that now ordain women. Do you remember?
Wasn't expecting to get tapped in. Yeah, they're into the mic. So there are 2 different rabbinical associations that have broken off from modern Orthodoxy that are what they call progressive Orthodox. Ordained women perform egalitarian ceremonies, but those two, there's 2 different like seminaries and sort of centers of those groups. One is based out of Phoenix. It's probably the closest one. But I wouldn't say that those folks are necessarily considered part of mainstream Orthodoxy anymore. A lot of those folks have. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, for instance, within that situation, I'd say the women who have been ordained in the breakoffs from the Orthodox movements actually do a lot of work with other female rabbis, and there's a lot of coordination in those areas, as well as mutual respect. And there are organizations that are dedicated to intrafaith study, intrafaith dialogue. Probably the most famous is the Shalom Hartman Center, which is based in Israel, but does a lot of work with North American rabbis as well. In terms of on a local basis, depends on where you are. In the communities that have very small Orthodox communities, the relationship between all the movements is actually very strong. In the communities where there is a strong Orthodox presence, I'd say that cooperation between the movements tends to be weaker. And then it's also coastal. The West Coast tends to be much more inclusive across the movements, where you'll see a lot more collegiality between the rabbis from all the movements, as opposed to on the East Coast, which tends to be the same way that it tends to be with ethnic groups. It's much more territorial, it's much more tribal, whereas California in general is not a really tribal, not just Jews, I mean like no one. So we reflect the cultures we're in. So in Sacramento, we've been incredibly lucky that all of the synagogues actually work very closely together. And ironically, there's been, in my 26 years here, a lot of times where it's the Orthodox and Reform communities that are actually working closer together than with the conservative synagogue. So it's kind of like they're the middle child that kind of gets squeezed out.
So where does Chabad fit in?
No, yes, Chabad is extremely strong in college campuses. Chabad is always invited to the table, and sometimes they share the table with us and sometimes they do not. So, much to my surprise, over the last year, I think we have had more coordination with Chabad than we have for years, and that is on the issue of Israel. So when it comes to non-religious issues that are of concern to peoplehood and safety, we will see Chabad joining the larger Jewish community. When it comes to issues that are particularly religious, like a holiday celebration, they're not going to be, they'll do stuff with the Orthodox community, but not with the non-Orthodox community. I'd say in this town, there's collegiality between all the branches, but they often choose to stay separate.
What is the Reform movement's view on the annexation of the West Bank?
So, no, that's a good question. I would say there's a lot of hair being pulled out by the Reform Jews, the Reform movement, both here and in Israel. The Reform movement has long been an advocate for a two-state solution and believing that that there will not be peace if there is. We can't have peace and democracy and human rights if it's one country. That we need to have a Palestinian and an Israeli, a Jewish state that has safe and secure borders. So the annexation of the West Bank is not something that we are for at all. And the tactics of the current Israeli government and the way that they treat the Palestinian people, particularly in the West Bank, is not something that we're at all happy about. You want to add to that one? So I should say I'm not just randomly calling on Sophie. Sophie actually worked for the Reform movement for a couple of years and was with the Religious Action Center in D.C.
And a great mom.
Oh, thank you. We have a 4-month-old son. Yes. That's okay. And that's my dad. So, the Reform movement, its official resolution, like what's on the books, is for a two-state solution. It also has a series of other sort of secondary resolutions. That's just like their method through which they make their official positions known. The Reform movement took a stance against moving the embassy to Jerusalem, took a stance against the United States continuing to sell weapons outside of the Biden administration had made a commitment to stop selling certain categories of weapons to the Israeli government for a certain period of time. The Reform movement encouraged the Biden administration to continue that ban. They did not. The Reform movement, I would say, maintains relationships. For example, it works with AIPAC, it works with J Street, it works with all of the different Israel organizations because there isn't like an easy one-size-fits-all answer. So many of the issues require a nuanced approach from each one. But generally speaking, the Reform movement, the conservative movement, and the Reconstructionist movement are all pretty much aligned on a two-state solution. Although there is increasing calls for whether or not that's still a viable position. And I think the URJ, as the institution that represents the movement, is sort of continuing to ask itself whether or not the two-state solution is still the drum to beat.
And part of that, there's many reasons for it. Part of it is there is no leadership on either side that actually wants to have it. So to push for a solution that neither the Israeli government or Palestinian leadership wants, that's not going to happen. And Bibi has made it very clear that that's not what he wants. And by aligning himself with the political parties that are further to the right, they're making it virtually impossible for there to be a two-state solution. Because when you expand settlements, when you take Palestinian land, when you create what are called facts on the ground, it becomes much harder to divide the land. You would have to be an expert in American gerrymandering to be able to make it happen. It would be, I mean, when you say that's what they've essentially done. Yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, so it's becoming increasingly impossible because of the reality on the ground. Any other questions? Oh, Steve.
I'm going to let you finish with maybe a religious topic. So I'm thinking back a week or two.
Wait, I'm going to interrupt. That actually is a religious topic. Because, no, I do want to say there's a reason why the Reform, Reconstructionist, and Conservative movement are on the same page, and it's because we know what Jewish law says about how to treat the minority, how to treat the other, how to work for peace. And working for peace is a religious act from a Jewish perspective. And so in Judaism, there is no separation between the political, the personal, and the religious.
Well, then I'll let you finish with the text topic. So this may be last week or the week before, the portion dealt with the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. And I've heard all sorts of interpretations for why that happened, everything from sexual proclivities to the lack of kindness on the part of the people there. So what is your view on why God did that?
So I'm going to go with the really traditional Jewish view, which is actually not the sexual immorality, because Noah has issues with that one. But it's about hospitality to the stranger. And that it is in a section that, it's in a Torah portion. It was in last week's Torah portion. Or was it last week that, is it 2 weeks ago? I'm trying to think. It was when Emmett had his bar mitzvah. Is that 2 weeks ago? So a couple weeks ago, sorry, I remembered by the bar mitzvah child, but so that Torah portion begins with Abraham recovering from a surgery, and he's sitting at the front of his tent, and he's scanning the horizon to see if there are people that he can help. And here he is, even as he's recovering from a surgery, it's his circumcision. Not an easy thing to recover from when you're in your 90s. And yet, he is still looking to see how he could show hospitality to a stranger. And we're taught that Abraham's tent is rolled up on all four sides so that strangers don't have to walk all the way around to the front of the tent. They can come in the easiest way. And he, for us, is the paradigm of what it means to show hospitality. It's important to remember we are a Middle Eastern tradition. I read who's the incoming ambassador to Israel? Mike Huckabee has this apparently written curriculum on Jews and Israel, which is not our perspective. And in it, he calls us a Western religion. We're not a Western religion. We are very much not a Western religion. And Judaism really only makes sense when you put it in the context that we grew up in. And we grew up as a Bedouin. Abraham was a Bedouin. We were a traveling people. We had, camels and tents, and we were not farmers. We were shepherds. We kept moving. And hospitality in that culture is huge, because what happens if I come up to your tent and you don't show me hospitality, what's going to happen? No, I could die. I mean, you're out in the desert, and if somebody is not showing you hospitality, they can die. So hospitality, how we treat the stranger, 36 times it's written in the Torah how to treat the stranger. And then we have the story of Noah. Of Lot, Abraham's nephew, who's living in Sodom. And he's having to try to sneak in strangers so they won't be gang raped, as they come into town. And that part of what our commentators teach that was so horrible was not just how they treated the strangers, but why. And it was because they had an abundance of money. These were prosperous communities. They had more than enough to share, but they didn't want to share it. And they then would try to threaten and scare people or hurt them so that they wouldn't come. I don't know about you, but that feels very relevant. And to me, I think that's a sin. When you have the ability to share and you have the ability to provide, to help those who have less, and you don't do it, that's sinful. And that's what we saw in our last election. We saw people threatening and lying about immigrants and strangers so that they could get hurt, so as to scare them away. We've separated children from their parents at the borders to try to scare other people from coming and bringing their children. And yet we know that we actually, if we wanted to, we actually do have enough to go around. Maybe a couple less rockets into outer space, and we could feed more people in our country. So we have time for one more question. Anyone have a less depressing question? Okay, no, you already asked. I'm going to ask the other David. Oh, did you have a question? All the way over? Ah. really all the way over. Okay.
I've been wondering, with all the text, why is it that the Holy Days text is the binding of Isaac?
Oh, that's a great question. Wait, let me get some water. That is actually a question that I really, really love. One sec. Because it's not. So, my thesis advisor in rabbinical school, Rabbi Stanley Dreyfus of blessed memory, was the editor of the Maroon prayer book. Do you remember the old prayer book that we had for high holidays? I hated that. I hated that prayer book so much. I could go into all sorts of theological reasons and structural reasons. I hated that prayer book. But then I had him as my thesis advisor. I'm like, oh, I have so many questions. I really need to get my questions answered. Yeah, if you ever had to lead a service out of the book, you know that it is horrible. But I asked him what was the deal with the Torah portions for Rosh Hashanah, because the reading on the first day of Rosh Hashanah is not the binding of Isaac. The reading on the first day of Rosh Hashanah is the chapter that comes before. And the chapter that comes before begins, in English it begins, and God remembered Sarah. And that is the reading for the high holidays. And it's about how God remembers Sarah for life. And what it means by that is makes her pregnant, and she has a baby, and then their generations can continue. And the reason that's the Torah portion is because, and then it goes on, and there's another really horrific story. Sarah has Abraham send Hagar and Ishmael out into the desert, but then she too and her child is also saved. So we have these two wild stories of mothers and their sons and both getting saved. And we're trying to say to God, hey, remember when you remembered Sarah for life? We want you to remember us for life, because the high holidays is all about getting written into the book of life for another year. So when I asked Rabbi Dreyfus, so the reason we read the binding of Isaac is because it's the next thing that is in the Torah. So we're not reading it to read it. We're reading it because, you're reading a book and you just keep reading in the next chapter. And because it's a hassle to roll the Torahs to different places. So we read the binding of Isaac on the second day because it follows the other Torah portion. So that's not really the portion that we should be focusing on. Now, when I asked Rabbi Dreyfus why in the old Maroon prayer books did he put the binding of Isaac as the first day of Rosh Hashanah reading and the alternative reading for the second day being the creation of the world, he said to me what summed up several thousand generations of male rabbis. The story about the women was just not compelling. Now, in fairness, he was actually a great thesis advisor, and he put up with a lot because I had a very feminist thesis, and he was incredibly supportive. But what he was saying really, it reflects why we need diversity in the rabbinate, why you need not just men and women, but you need people of different sexual orientations, why you need Jews of different ethnic backgrounds, not just Ashkenazi, and Jews by choice. We have tons of Jews by choice who are rabbis, but you need those different perspectives because people teach what is compelling to them. And so we have this view of Judaism that is like this, even though the commentary and the teachings are vast and profound, because your teacher's going to teach what is compelling to them. I mean, there's passages I don't delve into because they're not compelling to me, but I'm also hoping I'm not the only teacher somebody is going to. My thesis, it's kind of funny because I don't sing, but the thesis was women sing praise to God, songs of praise to God. And it was about the songs of Miriam, Hannah, and Deborah, and how they affected our liturgy and how they influenced our liturgy. It was just funny because I can't sing or chant any of those songs. But those were great questions. I have to say, I love Ask the Rabbi because you guys make me think about things and make my brain actually work. So I want to say thank you. Anytime. It's my pleasure now to invite up, we're said Ted London, our incoming president, for some Shabbat greetings and announcements.
Thank you so much. Again, my name is Ted London. For those of you who don't, I'll start again. My name is Ted London. For those of you who don't know me, I am the president-elect. I will become president next July. So thank you, Rabbi Alfie, for enlightening us and filling us with knowledge and kavanah. And thank you so much, Michael. It's so wonderful to have your music fill our sanctuary. So I hope all of you will join us after services for the Oneg, which will be in the social hall. For those of you watching on Zoom, you still have time to drive down for a great Oneg, sponsored by B'nai Israel. Tomorrow morning, we'll have weekly Torah study led by the fabulous Laura Rosenthal in person and on Zoom. And then at 10:30 in the chapel, we will have a Kavanah Shabbat service led by Rabbi Denny Deutsch-Marshall. Looking ahead, just two things to mention. On Sunday, December 8th, we are going to have an amazing concert here. If you like klezmer music, we're going to have a Yiddish combo from San Francisco. It's sponsored by the women of B'nai Israel. It's going to be a fabulous afternoon. I highly recommend it. And then on December 20th, mark your calendars, just before Hanukkah is our annual latke dinner and olive oil fundraiser. It is a great time, and you definitely want to RSVP ahead of time. It usually sells out, so absolutely RSVP ahead of time for that. It's a great event. And then, we really try to practice audacious hospitality here. So hopefully you'll go up to people at the Oneg who you don't know and meet someone new. But in particular, I'm going to ask every past president, current board member, or committee chair to stand, please. Because these are people who absolutely you want to get to know, who can tell you about the temple. Could you introduce yourself?
Nita Davidson, I'm the Shamus coordinator. A Shamus is a person who helps the service happen.
Both.
Josh Mastronardi, past president.
I'm Steve Orkand, also a past president.
Hi, I'm Jane Orkand, and I manage the gift shop. So look on your online or every place else, you'll see extra dates for December. Please come in. We have lots of Hanukkah stuff already.
So thank you all, and Shabbat Shalom.
And I forgot to say that Cantor Curlin is sorry that she's not able to be here with tonight because she is helping with the installation with the Cantor at Or Rishon tonight. So she's up at Or Rishon, and both she and I are very grateful. And I'm sure all of you are very grateful that Michael was able to be with us tonight, because it would have been a really short service. We rise for the Aleinu, which can be found on the bottom half of page 586.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום בהשבותה אל לבבך. כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Our thoughts now turn to loved ones who are no longer with us. And with sadness, we announce the recent passing of Sylvia Lip Wexler, beloved mother of Rabbi Nancy Wexler, beloved grandmother of Max and Wiley, Eliza, Lily, and Sam, and Grace. For those of you who knew Sylvia, she was also a longtime member of our congregation. Her confirmation picture hangs up in the confirmation gallery and was a fixture here at High Holidays, playing the violin each and every Kol Nidre. And when I was first a rabbi here, she and her husband Bernie came every single Shabbat and would sit in the back of the room. We lost her, understandably, as a member when her daughter became the rabbi at Beth Shalom, and who could blame her for that? But she was a lovely, lovely and decent woman, and really a beloved member of our congregation for a long time. It is also with sadness that we announce another passing in our congregation, Julie Wexstein, the beloved wife of Annie Morgan and beloved stepmother of Abby Pierce. Also, sadly, we recall the recent passing of Paul Nord, the beloved cousin of Helen Nussbaum. And sadly, another member of our beloved member of our congregation, Lois Anapolsky, passed away recently, and was the beloved mother of Missy, Mark, and Lou Anapolsky, beloved stepmother to Bruce and Keith Tochterman, beloved mother-in-law of Tim Harmon, Sue Anapolsky, Marlene Anapolsky, and Laurel Tochterman, and adoring grandmother of Jason, Joshua, Matthew, Nicole, Amber, and Rob, and Adam, and beloved step-grandmother of Rachel, Ari, Tyler, and Spencer, and great-grandmother of Rory, Evan, Abby, and Austin. Zichronam livracha, may all of their memories forever be a blessing. We also recall loved ones who have passed away at this time in years past. We remember Ann Albert, Larry Anapolsky, Rosalind Berkman, Wendy Clayton, Jerome Cohen, Irving Cohn, Joseph Deitel, Morris Deitel, Belle Dorenfeld, Bill Dunning, Jesse Fabish, Annie Friedman, Doris Gaines, Julia Guy, Blanche Goldstein, Daniel Gorfain, Joseph Green, Sidney Green, Edna Greenbaum, David Hussey, Donald Katz, Irving Kelcher, Harry Keir, Ben Krasnow, Edward Cronick, Virginia Ruth Levine, Sherry Lifton, Ann Lindgren, Meyer Lipschultz, Rose Margulies, Edward Maslowski, Jacob Mizrahi, David Pasternak, Blanche Purcell, Kitty Rabinowitz, Kenneth Raskin, Mendel Rice, Albert Rogan, Meyer Rahm, Paul Rosenberg, Bessie Rosenthal, Robert Ruth, Arthur Samuels, Min Silverman, Sandra Spector, Leroy Spitzy, Alan Strauss, Sidney Vines, and Eileen Weinreb. If there are any names that anyone would like to add to the Kaddish list today, please feel free to call those names aloud when my gaze meets yours. I'd like to invite those who are saying Kaddish for a loved one tonight to please rise. And if the congregation can please join me in these words of comfort. Hamakom yenechem etchem betok sha'ar avlei Tzion v'Yushalayim. May God comfort you among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. We rise as a community to offer comfort to those who grieve as we continue together on page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirtei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei techol Beit Yisrael, ba'gala uv'yizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam ulmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitraman v'yitnaseh, V'yitzadar, v'yitzaleh, v'yitzalal, shemei dekudsha, barichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Osei shalom b'marmav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved, and let us say, amen. Michael, what do you have for us to close our service with tonight?
A song of hope.
We could use that. That's a good thing.
A song of hope called If Not Now, because it's always the right time to think about justice and peace and freedom. If not now, tell me when. If not now, tell me when. We may never see this moment or place in time again. If not now, tell me when. I see sorrow and trouble in this land. I see sorrow, trouble in this land. Although there will be struggle, we'll make the change we can. If not now, tell me when. I may never see the promised land. I may never see the promised land. And yet we'll take the journey and walk it hand in hand. If not now, tell me when. So we'll work till it's done. Every daughter and every son, every soul that ever longed for something better, something brighter. It'll take a change of heart for this to mend. It will take a change of heart for this to mend. But miracles do happen every shining now and then. If not now, tell me when.
We conclude the service with the Kiddush and the Motzi. Afterwards, everybody is invited to please join us for the delicious goodies that await us at the Oneg. You get the big boy cup. The blessing can be found on page 123.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pari hagafen Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho ve'ahav uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lemase bereshit ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh zecher letziat Mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim Shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat Amen L'chaim u'shalom u'rachamim U'tuvo.
I couldn't say u'tuvo because it was in my mouth. So for those of you who are visiting, this is a sad little challah because it never actually gets to get eaten. This one is for blessing purposes only. There is a delicious, soft, and edible challah that is in the oneg.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom.
It's decomposing.
Yeah, so are we all.